everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. We've got the pleasure of having Don New here. He's the director of Hatchery Wild Coexist. But before we get going, first off, I want to thank everybody for coming down to the show this past week. I know the shows have been crazy and the last few years have been crazy, but thanks for coming down. We really appreciate it. And so I think we had Shane Magnuson on our last live feed. It's been a few weeks. I'm not really doing this every week. I wish I could, but there's just way too much for me to do. And I love doing this, but it takes a lot of time, and putting it all together is time consuming. So first off, we need to pick the winner from when Shane did his live feed. We've got a lammy glass rod over in the corner, and then we've got a bunch of product from Zilla Baits right here, along with the product from Kershaw Knives. Oh, Kershaw, sorry, I gotta be careful. So right now, I've got a Zilla Bait hat right here, and I'm gonna have Don pick the winner. And of course, it's all blurry, so I'm an old guy. So we got Robert Cole. Robert Cole, you just won all the Zilla Bait products, the Kershaw products, and the lammy glass rod. It's a 9'6", perfect rod for fishing with a float. There it is, Don. I gotta keep Don from taking it home. He's probably gonna put it in his pocket, maybe. So let's get going. Oh, actually, one more thing. We're also gonna be doing another giveaway, and Don brought in. What do you have here, Don?
Several versions of our hat, and our hoodie, and I think a sticker, and then we've got these cool insulated cups in red, black, gray, and white. They're pretty nice. So that's what we'll be giving away.
Yeah, these are really, really nice hats, high quality. Richardson, I think everybody's familiar with that brand. So I guess what I want to do with this show is really get to know the people that are on it. I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about hatcheries and genetics and wild and whatnot. But Don, you've probably seen him at the shows. You've seen his social media. He kind of infiltrates every little facet of the fishing industry. And he's been in the industry in this area since the 70s, I think.
1870.
1870, yeah, there you go. So actually, he sent me some photographs here that we're gonna go through, and they're kind of fun. This first one really is interesting.
Yeah, this is my father, who passed away 2 years ago. He was a test pilot, and this is a helicopter. One of two helicopters that got invited by Earl Stanley Garner's crew. He's the writer of Perry Mason, and he wrote books down in Baja. So they did a cool 4 or 5 week trip down through Baja in helicopters. And this is my dad. He's got his 6-shooter. We're all from Texas. I moved to the West Coast when I was just a kid, but our family is from Texas. So it's a kind of a neat shot.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do you see a guy next to a helicopter with a gun slinging next to his side? I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that the story behind the helicopter, that experimental helicopter, was they were challenged by Bell Helicopters. The government was going to put a huge contract out for the first lightweight helicopter with a turbine engine on it, and his company. Not his company, he was test piloting for the company. They lost. So you only see those helicopters on the West Coast up in logging expeditions, and the Bell Jet Ranger is everywhere.
So this next picture, it looks like some kind of Hollywood movie star six-pack guy on the left there. Who's that?
Yeah, where'd that go? Anyway, yeah, this is on the Umpqua. Dad, once he was done with his flying experimental helicopters, he started flying for the Forest Service on forest fires. And I, during school in the summers, would drive the fuel truck. And this is a tent that we, as a lot of you guys know that have fought fires. There's a lot of sitting around until things get going. And that was our tent. And we spent, I think, 2 weeks shooting flies with rubber bands. That's mostly what we did.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. And that's where I caught my first steelhead, by the way. It was
okay.
not in earlier than that, but the
nice.
was my first fish. Yeah.
So this next one, I know who that is. That's your mom, right? And I think you're in there, but you cut yourself out.
Yeah. No, that's I didn't want to do too much with my father, but obviously he meant a lot to me. And Mom was, that was a deal up in Canada where I was a volunteer taking down old totem poles and repainting them.
Okay, now this is fun. This one here.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is you sent me these pictures, and I know, did he win an award there at the bottom right? 1929.
Yeah, that was at in Forest Grove, the competition. He restored a couple of different cars. That one and a 1931 Ford Coupe.
So I was actually watching on YouTube a guy that was getting one started. It was green, not pristine like your dad's.
Yeah.
But the exact same truck. I'm not sure if it was that year, but the little pickup version of it. And I mean, what a fun truck, right?
Yeah.
You'll throw some rods in the back.
It's not real fast. Not good in the snow. No.
So is this your son?
Okay, so this is the beginning of my introduction to Willie through Buzz. Buzz and I were on the board, Oregon Wildlife Heritage Foundation, and Buzz introduced me to Willie. I went down, met Willie. It was his non-compete was coming up, and from Alumaweld, and he said, "I need a brochure," and I said, "I need a drift boat." So that was in '86. This is the day I took delivery on the drift boat in trade for the brochure. So I fast forward 26 years, the Baker trailer blew up over in Tillamook, and I called Willie and said, "Hey Willie, I need a trailer," and he said, "Well, I need a new logo." So that's what you see now is the new logo.
Nice. So
these are a couple of the kids and my wife. Yeah, that's in Cabo. Yeah, Rooster. That was a trip. Our family travels in mass, which is kind of fun. The 4 kids and big group. Yeah, those sunny days in Cabo. So the next one is how my son and I one of the kids would travel. Are we there yet?
Yeah, there it is.
Is it up?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. So that's how we'd go to Idaho or Montana to fish the Madison. So we had and that's the boat when it was maybe 15, 20 years old.
Is that like a mine in the background? It looks like a mine, huh?
Yep. Yeah, we hauled a lot of junk.
So it looks
this
like...
This is, the kids, some of the kids took me on Father's Day fishing. Eric Swanson, actually. I had bid Eric's boat, and so we all went fishing. Kelsey is the lucky one of the group. She got the only, she got a sturgeon and a Chinook.
Is that on the Columbia?
I can't tell you. It's a secret place.
Okay, I won't say any more then. I probably know where it is.
I have to blur out the background. Yeah. Right. Eric would hate it. Kelsey was always the one that, and this is a lesson for young fathers. Don't take your kids to fish farms.
Oh, gosh.
Early on.
Okay, that's fine.
Number one, I told Kelsey, the owner said, "Don't go to that pond. Those fish are $40. And so she went right there and got this $40 trout. We had nothing to do with it. We were on our way to California. But and then you try to stick them in the drift boat during winter steelhead season.
Before we go from that picture, though, this is funny. I took my daughters to a trout farm not far from Nick's out by the Clackamas, and they literally took the fish to clean them and had a shop back with the tip bent into a little flat shape and just sucked them out. Just sucked the guts out. I don't even think they used a knife. They just used the sharp end of the shop back. Okay.
This is Jordan. This was a long time ago. We were feeling the Hawaii and the warmth and out on the deck and catching a few fish. And then all of a sudden we simultaneously got really sick. And so that's how that day ended.
So is that a Dorado and a Wahoo?
Yeah. These are the kids coming down boxcar. And that's Jordan, the oldest, broing. It was a fun trip. That was a few years back.
Is that one of your favorite stretches?
Yeah. We put in at Trout Creek and took out at Maupin. Yeah.
That's a trip. I mean, that's a challenging
Well,
trip.
yeah, and the drift boat. I don't know if you have any of the drift boat pictures in.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So I've been blessed to catch a 20-plus pound steelhead in the Northwest and 50-plus salmon in the Northwest. This is a Garibaldi fish. Kelsey, I think, weighed 35 or 40 pounds, but yeah, that was a pretty cool fish.
Wow.
Don't see those a lot anymore down here. Another Deschutes trip, the gang. You put some funny stuff in there.
So then we got this. It looks like Christmas, maybe this last year.
Yeah, just so you guys know, I just took a pile of stuff and sent it to Tony last night late.
I whittled it down to these.
Yeah,
we burning through them pretty good here.
So this is our annual Christmas time beer pong contest, and the girls win every year. Has nothing to do with drinking beer. It's just they're better at it. So that's always fun.
Maybe their aim, their eyes are a little better.
That's true. Yeah. This is a photo shoot years ago on the Wilson. I did a series of posters for fish posters, and we'd go out and catch a fish and then photograph it. This is back in the days of film. That's a very large format film camera. It was a big poster. That kind of stuff is fun.
It's funny because when I first saw that picture, I was like, did everybody just fall out of the boat? And you're checking to see if the camera still works.
No.
It's like a yard sale.
No, we were doing stuff like stitching the eyeball down in a down position so it still looked like that it hadn't been bonked yet.
Oh, wow.
Back many years ago, Lord Jensen and Buzz, they were looking at us to perhaps do some work for them. And so Buzz took me out to see if I wasn't just a flatland or city boy. And we did great. We had caught a few fish, and that started a long time relationship. This is Dave Shamp. He's the chairman of CCA and also was the founder of Hatchery Wild, one of the founders. There's three of us. Dave and Jack Smith basically came to me to get it going. And I'd known them for years, but they were really the founders of the thing.
And so Dave, but he's not any longer with you guys. I mean, he's with us. But.
Yeah, Dave has two. Dave has two grandsons that he just adores, and he has become their father and chasing them around they're good baseball players, so that's his life. And he just also built a house, which was all consuming. So he's just been taking a little bit of sabbatical.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that $1 million?
Yeah, right. No, we just go. Hatchery Wild runs on donations and some of these hats and things that we sell, and so I decided that we were getting tight, and I decided just to do a fundraiser on my personal Facebook page, and my friends stepped up. I think it was 10 days at $11,000.
Wow.
And I was going to fish with Jack over on the Deschutes, so I took that big old check to him.
This is a nice fish. And I think I know where that is, too.
Yeah, it's in Boise, Idaho.
That's got a little color on it.
Yeah. Oh, good. You got that.
Now, this one coming up, I think, is your wife, and she's got a big smile on her face.
No, she wasn't smiling. So the kids were in the raft. You saw that shot, and they were behind us. And we had flipped the raft at the top of Whitehorse. You guys that know Whitehorse, that's not a good place to do it. No. And the reason they did it was it sneaked up on us. The cable was gone or something. I don't know what I was responsible, but they hit the OSH rock right at the top of Whitehorse and flipped it right over. So four of them fell. No, Jordan stayed in, two of the girls got back in, but the third girl did Whitehorse floating, but holding on to it.
So it was like a pinball machine.
Yeah, but I got beside her and got downriver with the boat so she could hold on to the gunnel. That was a very scary time.
So here's your wife with the that's Idaho, right?
Right. No, that's a trussel. That's a trussel. We're gonna be. That's gonna be fun time here in the next few weeks.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. So we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. I wanted to go back to when Don was young, growing up. He's actually not from Oregon originally, right? You were born in Texas.
Yeah.
back in 18, what did you say, 48, something like that?
I was told that I got my Oregon citizenship at 50 when I turned 50. So that's a couple of years ago.
Oh, automatic.
Yeah. So I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Oregonian. But you can see from the shots of my father and the way we grew up, we knew how to get around the outdoors, and he crashed a lot of helicopters, and he was very resilient and figured things out, and he taught us to do that.
Did he have a special spring in his seat? Oh my gosh. Crashing helicopters, it doesn't usually always end well.
Yeah.
He had an angel, maybe.
Yeah, the great thing about that was when he was flying for the Forest Service, and we were really little in Montana, we were stationed there, but he would take the three of us and all our gear and just take us up on a river and drop us off. And then he'd go do his firefighting thing, the Sims buckets and all that. And the way he found us, we just made a big X in a field, between 3 and 5 o'clock every afternoon. He'd fly down the river until he saw the big X in the field, and that's where we would be.
Wow.
So it was pretty adventuresome time, and we spent a year in Louisiana in the bayou, learning about snakes and trot lines and all that stuff.
Did you catch alligators?
No, we did not catch alligators. We knew to stay away from the snakes. That was red on yellow will kill a fella. That's what we learned. Coral snakes.
Yeah. So what was the first fish? I mean, did you get into bass in Texas? What's your first big memory of wanting to catch a fish?
I think I was 4 or 5 in a little rowboat with my dad, and we were fishing jitterbugs and topwater. And I remember that's when I got completely enamored with fishing, is that I was dragging that jitterbug across the surface of the water, and this monster largemouth bass, big mouth, hit it, and I was done. I mean, there was nothing better than that.
Just exploded.
Yeah, just exploded, and it scares you, especially if you haven't seen it before. But he always kept, he did 2 things. He always kept us equipment, fishing equipment in our hands, and a camera. He was a photographer, so he always made sure we had gear.
So that's where you kind of got your interest in graphics and layout type of design type stuff, maybe?
The design stuff, which was my career, the graphic design, corporate communications, branding, rebranding, that all started there because both my parents were pretty artistic. And then I figured out when I was 10 years old at a church camp, a publisher of a magazine asked me to do 4 posters during the week, design them, whatever. And I made $100.
Wow. Well,
$25 a design.
That's probably
and that was
money.
the end. That was, it was over at that point. So I parlayed that into, having freelance stuff when I was in high school, and then ultimately college and art school. And, I was very fortunate. I am very fortunate to do things that I really love, especially for the fishing industry. When my firm was quite large and dependent on the Microsofts and the Intels and the Blazers and the banks and all that, I had to work with people that I frankly didn't like. I mean, it was tough because you got to feed 65 people.
So you got deadlines and all these problems coming at you at the same time, and you got to answer everything and hope everything ends out at the right spot at the end.
And I didn't go to school for that. I went to school to be a graphic designer, art director, creative guy. So I was able to do an ESOP with employees. I sold the company in the 90s. And I committed at that point to never work with anybody I didn't like or respect.
Well,
I don't know why I'm here. Oh, it's
No, I mean, honestly, I get it. You enjoy a vocation or doing something, and then you get all of a sudden involved with management.
Oh, it was horrible.
And then instead of doing what you enjoy, you turn into some kind of babysitter all day long, and it's just frustrating and maddening.
Yeah, I was fortunate to hire a business manager, an accountant, and all that in-house, but I was sitting there one afternoon adding up what we paid for our staff's parking in downtown Portland.
Oh, gosh.
In 1 month, it was more than I made my first year of freelancing.
Yes, and I wonder what it would be like right now.
So anyway,
it's probably free now.
Yeah, they bought the company, and I was able to. I had relationships with Buzz and Gary Loomis and a lot of really good people that got me connected. We did Gary Loomis Rods first 6 or 7 catalogs. And I just loved it because you'd go up there and you'd work for 20 minutes and you'd go fishing the rest of the day.
Maybe you get a free rod, right?
Oh, we have a couple free rods, yeah. Yeah, and Edge is for Hatchery Wild, Edge has been a tremendously generous company for us.
Yeah. Good. So you also fished with Willie Illingsworth a few times?
Some of the things I can talk about. Yeah, well, I was with Willie. I was fishing out of a base camp with Jim Teeney and Donna, and he was trying to break line test records, world records and stuff. And I watched him fishing, and I mirrored everything he did, same equipment, everything. And he was 10-1 for every fish I could hook, but he'd get a 35-pound fish on and just straight line it, and pop the fly out, and put another one on because he was looking for 60, 65. But yeah, Willie would show up to repair. This is Duncan and Sons, and Willie would show up to repair the boats, and it was chaos. Starting right away, it was just crazy.
Oh, I bet.
Lots of Willie stories.
The hook thing's funny because our dad will do that. Just break the tip and the barb off, and just. I mean, if you're cooking a lot of fish, just get that grab and then wiggle it off.
Oh yeah. Well, I told you the fish farm story up by Mount Hood. Well, what I ultimately did was exactly that. Is I got little fly rods and just basically feathers, so they could get the take, and then at the end of the day, you'd put a real, an actual hook, actual fly on with a hook on it, and take 2 fish and go home.
So Willie, interestingly, I think my dad told us this, that he was the first guy to use the PVC pipe bathroom out the side of the drift boat, something like that. I don't know if you recall.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Happening, but he was ingenuitive, a creator, obviously.
Yeah. The thing about Willie that anybody, and certainly Herb Good and Buzz know him much better than I do. But the thing about Willie is if you were on his team or he was on your team, he'd do anything for you. But if you crossed him, then it became a little, and it wasn't anything particularly violent. It was just, could be mean at times, pranks and stuff. But, he built a great boat, and his legacy lives. Jim Biddle's doing a wonderful job running that company. So. And mine is 38 years old this year. One quick story. 6 years ago, I was in a storm on the Nehalem, and I was by myself during the rendezvous, and I wanted to go up and shoot some pictures of some otters. It was a family, little otters. And I saw the wind coming. I could see the whitecaps, and it blew my hat off. And then it really hit, and I turned into the shore. And when I did that, the front of it's a big boat, front of it lifted up, and I sank it in 18, 20 feet of water.
From the wind?
It just picked it out. It had a motor on the back because I was trolling.
So it's a little.
So I just watched it, and in 4 or 5 seconds, it was gone. Fast forward, my boat I've had forever. What am I going to do? And the guy at the marina, Jim, said, "Oh, it's going to fold up like a taco."
Water.
And I had all this gear. I had all my camera gear in a cooler, which popped up. I got that. Anyway, went back at low tide that night, and there were 4 or 5 cars and a police car parked off, and my boat was high and dry on a mud flat.
Really?
You could see the rods sticking out. It's full of water and it's high and dry. But people thought that I had just drowned. So the policeman I said, "That's my boat." We went out, we pumped it out. I rowed it back to the marina. They flushed the engine. It's fine. I broke 1 rod tip.
Wow.
But if a rope, like a bow line rope or something had caught in my boot or anything, I just would have gone to. So be careful in the wind.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just
that boat has a lot of history.
In general, be careful, right?
Yeah.
So moving forward, you came out, or you already west.
Yeah, I think I was in junior high.
Junior high.
And moved to McMinnville because at that point my father, the helicopter pilot, had taken a job with Evergreen as a pilot.
Oh, okay.
Del Smith and that gang.
Big company.
Yeah. And he was there for 15 years, moved into management, and then left in a ball of flames. Del Smith is an amazing entrepreneur, but they locked. And so Dad went out and bought with investors 9 helicopters or 6 helicopters. Sold them very quickly, and then bought an EMT helicopter and got the Life Flight contract, and that's how he ended his career.
So was just to go back a hair, the Evergreen, were they moving logs out of the forest? They were a big company.
Choker chain, yeah,
chokers,
chokers,
lifting stuff. Right?
yeah. And part of the rub was when Dell decided to go with an airline, Evergreen Airlines, and Dad's a helicopter guy, so and a military Army helicopter guy.
Gotcha.
So he just thought he was expanding off it quickly, and it was a time. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's history now, and it just worked out so well for my dad because he was his own guy. It was the first time he'd had his own business, Aeroplanning International, and he had the contract with Life Flight for I think 11 or 12 years.
So did he push to get you to fly? No, just no thanks.
No. And I've never had any interest until the kids gave me a drone for my birthday. And now I fly drones. I could be a commercial pilot, I'm sure. But no, I loved being in the helicopter with him. I was never worried about it. He flew us underneath the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge in California. We went to, back before you get shot down for doing that kind of stuff. But I never worried. But then when I get this little drone, I looked at it for 6 months before I even took it out. And so I practiced a lot in the desert a couple of weeks ago down south.
Yeah, you got to watch out for power lines, trees.
Yeah. The cool feature on drones for any potential droners is that you pin it, you hit a button, and it'll come back where it started. Yeah. And it comes within a few inches. It's pretty amazing. And that was my problem. I've lost some other stuff that flew.
Yeah, the stuff comes up like on you so fast. Sometimes you just end up landing in a tree or power line or whatever. Yeah. So then did you go to college in Oregon or did you?
I wanted to go to Los Angeles to the Art Center, and that was my first pick. And my dad was laid off. This was back many years, obviously. He got laid off from the deal he was doing and couldn't help me at all. So I applied for a scholarship at the University of Oregon. I got that. I worked in the dorms. I had a freelance business. I got a contract with the Willamette Forest Service. I guess it's called that. They didn't know I was in college. So I got a contract, a full-time job with them.
Wow. While you were in college. Wow.
Yeah, that was when, before you could work at home, and I worked in my dorm, set up a studio and stuff. And if you're the resident assistant, you can use it kind of like a business. And then I had a great professor who gave me an opportunity the last 2 years to do only real jobs. So a lot of people come to the college to get cheap design work, logos or brochures and stuff, or film work.
So you were doing paste up and
paste up,
scanned, all that fun stuff. Yeah,
pretty.
I started at that time, a little later.
Yeah,
but it was still paste up, wax, and
it's changed a lot
of work compared to what you can do now.
Yeah, our firm, my firm, original firm, we started in '84 with an Apple IIe, 540K or whatever, and I still have it.
We had those machines.
Yeah, floppy disk.
We got Quark Express.
Yeah,
that was the big thing back then.
Yeah, and fast forward 10 years, we had 32 Apples.
Wow.
All in the studio, all connected. Wow. So I've been an Apple guy forever. It's amazing. And what I like most about it are iPhones or whatever brand and what it does for fishermen. I mean, you're out there and you can do a video and you can shoot stills and share that with people. And I think that's a really great byproduct of that.
Oh yeah, the new iPhone camera is amazing. I mean, how do they stuff that in there, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. So this is when you started your agency, right?
When I graduated from school, I interviewed at Mount Hood Community College for a job to be their graphic designer for the school, and I got that job. And then I realized people started asking me to freelance. I realized I could earn pretty much a month's wage in a weekend. They don't pay you a lot. So that lasted about a year. And I started my first company.
News landing design?
That's an iteration of what it used to be.
But later on.
It was more my name. I don't even remember what it was. But It was all referral and evolved into, I hired one employee and then I hired two and then I hired another and it just kind of escalated. And then we got into the toy business. So we did all the work for Teddy Ruxpin and Laser Tag, World's Wonder, did a lot of work in San Francisco, which was really a thrill going to the shows and stuff. And then our big money, our big revenue was, I think we did 10 or 11 annual reports, for big annual reports for big companies when they make big, printed annual reports. So there was
like a catalog almost.
Yeah, it was like a catalog. And that really, we got a good reputation with that and branding. Did a lot of packaging and then brochures and print. I mean, once I sold the company, it was still, it evolved into CD-ROMs and the emerging the web world.
Then the USB sticks.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah. Oh gosh, remember those drives? I forget the name. They were square, and you'd carry them around.
And with the big flat wires. That's on the 2E. That's on the Apple II.
Anyway, I'm dating myself.
So things have really. We had 2 typographers on staff, and if you wanted 8-point Helvetica, you had to change a little thing out. If you wanted 10, you had to change another little thing.
The Selectric, or are you going back?
No, we didn't. No, that's way. No,
that's 70s.
No, these were big things called Mergenthalers and giant piece of equipment. We had a thing that just made slides for corporations, and it was as big as a third of this room installed, and we used it for 5 years and did very well with it. And by the time the lease was up, they wouldn't come pick it up. It had no value.
Isn't that funny?
Because it's now this big.
I think we had, remember there was a Cytex.
Yeah.
This thing was like the size of this room.
Yeah.
And then we, at one point, we got a scanner that it was, pretty big, but it could do slides and everything, really. But like, same thing, it was totally obsolete.
A 1 gigabyte card for your camera, for your Canon or wherever you're shooting 10 years ago, 1 gig was $399. Now you can get it's just fascinating, how things have evolved.
All right, so let's go way forward and start talking about Hatchery and Wild Coexist. That kind of goes back 4 or 5 years?
3
years. So.
Well, I mean, the beginning of it. I mean, we launched this month 3 years ago at the show.
The official launch.
Yeah. One of the not confusing, but people wonder where we came from, and it was basically Dave Champ and Jack Smith. Jack Smith is a pro guide, and he's the president of CCA Oregon, and Dave is chairman, and has just been around forever. And the two of them, we would talk at the rendezvous for several years, and the two of them finally came and said, "Look, we can pull together some funds for you to do." To launch this thing, everything from naming it to design to any of the video work, the brand, all that. And to be real clear, it was not a lot of money, but it was some money from CCA Oregon, and it was combined with the same funds from the North Coast Salmon Steelhead Enhancement Fund, which is really the rendezvous, or part of the rendezvous now.
Hey, can you bring up that picture of our former governor down there at the very bottom?
That's our governor?
They're not. We'll get it up there. So I was down. Susan and I sometimes go for walks on some of the public areas. This is the Tom McCall Waterfront Park down in Salem. Like literally right now, a mile from the Capitol, maybe. So, you're talking about a brainchild. Well, like this upset me. Okay, so they were going to close the hatchery, what the Rock Creek Hatchery on the Umpqua. So that statue right there is Tom McCall, former governor, with a hatchery summer steelhead that was caught by him and photographed, and they made this a bronze statue of him. And you come, I don't know how many, 40, 50 years later, does anybody even know anything about this? And they're trying to close the hatchery that fish was probably raised in to begin with, and so we end up with a commission of people that don't even fish making a vote on this stuff.
That situation,
and so this is the kind of anger that you were probably feeling, right?
Well, the Rock Creek, this is in the North Umpqua. The issue was not closure; it was to stop a steelhead. 76,000, I think. Stop 76,000 steelhead from being released, and then in the summer, to put them in a lake or something. And it is the best example so far, one of a couple, three so far, where I think Hatchery Wild has made a difference. Certainly, other organizations jumped into this, but when the commission went against the department's recommendation, even a scaled back version of that recommendation, fewer released. When they did that, I don't think it was a 4-3. So we have some real advocates, three of them. But the other four, I don't think they realized what it was going to be like to really hack off a bunch of tribes and a bunch of us. And what came along and I think really saved the whole deal within a week or two, I hope it was that period of time, one of the local guys did an injunction. And so between all the noise that was created, and we do a lot of online noise making where you can, it's very easy to voice your opinion. Between those three factors, they were able to reverse that decision and release those fish. But it just keeps going. It's like Pokemon. There's just more and more stuff. And frankly, we don't have the kind of funds, we being Hatchery Wild, to fight well-funded organizations that want these hatcheries closed. So we're constantly trying to raise funds. And part of what's good about what we do is the volunteers, including me, are able to make our voice louder through the media. We can't hire lawyers.
Yeah, so it's frustrating because our voice, I hate to say it, is kind of small. If somebody in Florida or New York that doesn't fish, they don't get it. They'll never get it. But if they were to vote on it and you sway them because you're the only one that they've heard from, they'll go with that, and they don't necessarily hear the whole story.
Right.
And so we end up with commissioners, probably 4 of them don't even fish. I don't even know where they lived. Were they from Portland?
You know what I mean? The fact is they're just, and we can grouse about it all day.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you, that's what everyone's thinking about now. In the current climate, it feels like we're not even on the radar on a lot of these things. So and if you follow the money, like you said, a lot of the money is coming to these other societies and other groups from people that are, I can't tell you anything other than anecdotally that have no clue what it is we're passionate about and what's at stake.
What are some of the specifics that Hatchery Wild is fighting for currently? Is there like kind of a list of some different things?
Yeah, the North Umpqua, the Rock Creek, that was a big one for us because I was the only advocate at the meeting in Astoria, and it's hard to sit with 12 of those other folks.
Now, are they going to rebuild the hatchery?
I don't have an answer for that. The insurance money is there, and for some reason it's held up, and I don't know why. And by the way, I fall back on Bruce Pauly, who's brilliant on these kinds of things, and he's CCA's GRC, or government relations guy. But that was a big win. One of the, in our first year, we were just trying to establish credibility. So the strategy that I suggested to Jack and Dave was, let's just get businesses to say we're good guys, that we believe in them. So the first one was Sportco up north. And if Sportco did it, then Fisherman's Marine needed to do it. And then Three Rivers out west, then Stevens. Yeah. And you go back and forth. Now we have 260 something businesses.
Well, in general, the whole industry is behind you guys on one side, I guess I should say. But a lot of people just aren't aware of the fact that things aren't pristine out here. We got problems. We got houses. We got business parks. We right here are in a business park that was messed up. mean, we've been here for a long time. We weren't a part of that. Yes, we kind of are, but this area right here should have thousands of smolts, being born.
Yeah,
And
wild
beavers were in
used
here.
to live right where
Yeah, literally. Well, we're on a high spot, but the whole area around us probably had beavers and beaver dams, and now it's got a bunch of ditches and culverts.
Really, the overarching reality that we want people to understand is that, number one, we have as much concern about wild fish as anybody.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Number two,
definitely.
the reason we want to keep hatcheries in place is because we are concerned about the wild fish. Now, the other guys are saying, well, let's just eliminate hatcheries. Let's eliminate a run like we did on the Clackamas 25 years ago so that that wild fish population would go up. Well, it didn't, went down.
Yeah.
So if you can not scapegoat hatcheries, then I think the overall effect becomes better funding, better understanding. One of the great things with our fans on Facebook and Instagram is I used to just spend a lot of time defending trollers that would come in and say, well, blah, 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 blah. Now our guys, the women and men that are involved in what we're doing, come in and support us. They come in and say, well, wait a minute, and most of them are a lot smarter than I am in arguing those points. And it's just really satisfying to see that. So you asked about what we're doing. The initial, right out of the chute when we started, Artificial came out, and it was Patagonia's hit piece on hatcheries. And, this varies in opinion, but my number one problem with that film was that they conflated open pen farms, which are a nightmare, with hatcheries in ground, right?
Yeah, and they picked the worst of the worst.
Yeah, the worst images, blood in the water, guts, and so the outcome was this 14-minute thing. You can get it on YouTube on our channel. But the outcome is now that and I follow them real closely, they've stopped that narrative. They're, who are we with Patagonia? But you don't hear that anymore where they make them to be the same. Now, there were 6 or 8 other issues that Dave Champ narrated on our film called Beneficial. We picked out 8 points that they made that were just bogus. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we got that out of the way. We had to do it because it was really an irritant, and we had some generous people sponsor that. And then we wanted to do a general piece on hatcheries and broodstock. So that is hatcheries are not the enemy, and the emphasis there is we've really screwed this up. This building that we're sitting in didn't help that trout population. No. But what are you going to do? I mean, you can't.
Well. So I do want to give kudos to ODF and W because they are doing a lot of restoration work, even around town on a lot of the creeks, like on the rivers, which is great. Just the park, just a few minutes from here, it was just lined with concrete. It was mud on the bottom, lined with concrete. They ripped all the concrete out, planted native plants. I mean, it's beautiful. And I think there's already been some coho that have been spawning right there in that section.
I think it's important for us as people that put images and messages and narratives out to really pat that department on the back when we can. They spent a lot of money to put a weir in at Cedar Creek, and there's a lot of that we don't talk about. There's a lot of habitat stuff that we don't talk about. All we talk about is a limited season.
Granted, I get the fact, okay, let's spend some money on restoration work and maybe no hatchery fish. Hopefully that doesn't take place, but it's probably a pendulum a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, and we're living in weird times with Washington. You got Jay Inslee, who one would assume that he's not big on hatcheries or doesn't know anything about fisheries, doesn't know the economics, and he puts it in a $50+ million budget to grow more salmon up there. Well, it's because the orcas are down. So, and that's a silver lining. But that was a very lucky situation to, and then now he's I think he stated that, or maybe there's a bill in place to take the gill nets off the river. I don't want to go down that route. That's not my area.
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
But he now is not a gill net guy. So that's promising.
Well, it's just like the whole problem. We got people involved that make decisions that don't really understand fishing. They don't fish. They don't hunt. They Not necessarily outdoors people. Maybe they go for hikes. I don't know. But they just don't understand it. They don't have feelings for people that really love it.
Well, yeah, and they're operating, at least what I see, is the ones that don't know much about what is going on in our world, is they operate out of emotion. So if you look at what's on their plate and you look at all the issues that are there, then you look at lawmakers and policymakers at the state level, they emotionally, when you drive through Portland, if you've lived here a while, you have an emotion. There's a real emotion. So if you're going to put your time on something, where are you going to put it? There, or to keep a hatchery up? So we have to constantly. Now, once we got these first 2 films done and got the notoriety that we were trying to get, and all these partners in place that were so helpful, both financially and with their social stuff, then we took a year and a half to raise $30,000 and did an impact statement for hatcheries. And we finished that about 3 or 4 months ago. We've had the company that we worked with has now parsed out these extracts for 6 counties in Oregon and 6 counties in Washington. So if another big deal comes up down south in Coos Bay, you can get that extract off our site and know exactly what the impacts are, what the visitation is,
Wow.
what that hatchery brings to the economy. And that's been our, outside of the emotional part of what we're doing, that's been what we've really tried to focus on is bring data and science and, like Horner's report on the Clackamas after 25 or 7 years and what happened that we bought into. That's kind of data, hard information that people need to see, and especially politicians. And then if we can say, look, when you shut down Buoy 10 for one reason or another, or you don't have hatcheries in this area, here's what the impact is. And then they can see the dollars, and that's different than our folks that we battle all the time, as they tend to throw out a lot of big data. So
I was watching Dave talk about something one time about how, like, you're not necessarily planning for the the good years. You're planning for the down years. Yeah. If the ocean isn't good, I mean, the returns sometimes are like 1 to 4%, right? Like 4 being a really good year.
That would be
1 being not so good. So if you know that maybe the ocean's not that good, you can put more hatchery fish out for that down cycle and hopefully get a larger number back.
And the plants are the number of smolt going into the river is dropping. In some situations, not so much, but in a lot of them, they're putting. If you're only dealing with 1% and all that mortality, all that, I mean, if you start dropping it the way it's been dropping, it doesn't do that well.
Yeah, and for people that are watching that don't know this, there can be 100,000 smolts put in a river, and on a bad year, maybe 1,000 of those will come back. Think about that. Like, that's, I mean, these fish, going out to the ocean, chances are they're not coming back. Not a good thing, but that's life, right?
Another really great success story, and it wasn't just CCA Oregon or all the other groups in Oregon that were involved in it, or Hatchery Wild, but that group had to get together. And my understanding is, this predates me with CCA, but CCA kind of marched in and worked with the tribes, and now the sea lion population is going down.
Oh, wow.
So,
really?
So if you look at going down because they're being removed.
Yeah.
But from a Hatchery Wild standpoint, if the state reported that there were 542 or something fish left in that run, and those fish are thrashing them at the base of the falls.
They get rid of them.
Yeah. So the word extinct was used, and that's when action really started. My understanding that got things really cooking. Well, so if you remove those guys from the base of that, and there's work going on up at Bonnieville, and at least we're getting some things done that people down in Southern California that are worried about any animal that has a
yeah. Well, historically, the seals and sea lions didn't have a free for all. Humans were taking them out hundreds of years ago, making places to live out of them and feeding on them.
There just
and
weren't so many of them.
bears.
I mean, when you have a sea lion up in our tribs, something's wrong with that picture.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've seen them all the way up to Clackamas, halfway to McIver Park, and it's like you're shocked. At first, you're in shock, but what is that?
And the irony is, we spend a gazillion dollars to protect a lot of those fish, those wild fish, and then we let them get slurped up by the sea lions indiscriminately. I think they're.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and so the main thing is though is you want people to know hatchery fish good. That's the whole point of what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Try to get rid of that. The hatchery fish are bad, and what's funny is if you go to the store or you see the news, they always say, oh, you want to buy wild caught fish, right? So I'm going to go over to salmon a little bit here, but the commercial guys that catch salmon out in the ocean, more than likely were hatchery salmon. Granted, once they're out in the ocean and they got to survive, they might as well be wild fish, because I know I wouldn't survive out there more than 10 minutes. But I don't know if you I'm trying to make a point here.
Well, it's better than the net penny fish.
Yeah, it's better than that fish. So how do you think about this? How do you can't remove the hatchery fish? You would kill all the salmon that is sold at grocery stores, restaurants, if it's wild. Okay, do you understand where I'm going with this?
Well, yeah, and that's probably one of the more salient arguments in all this is let's take the southern resident orcas. If they're just wiping out fish when there are a lot of fish there, if you remove the hatchery stock out of what they're eating, what does that do to the wild fish? You talk about extinction. Now that applies to a predator, pinniped. What about ocean conditions that are terrible? Well, if they're all wild fish going out in the ocean, and the data that I have read from two sources is that it would take 200 to 300 years if you eliminated everything and had no predators, no bad ocean, no cormorants, nothing, that it would take. You wouldn't have a population for 200 or 300 years.
Oh yeah. And you've got more construction.
Yeah, and that's leaving out the economics.
That's the perfect habitat.
Yeah, and that's leaving out everything that the industry itself. I mean, you can go to our economic impact report and know what size the sport fishing industry is specific to Oregon specifically, and then as finite as visitation at the revenue for visitation at the hatcheries. But I wouldn't say that all hatchery fish are good everywhere, because I think there are some rivers that there's you could sustain a wild run if you protected it. Yeah. And wouldn't that be lovely if every river was a wild fish?
Yeah, I agree. We're not talking about putting a bazillion hatchery fish in every single watershed everywhere.
Yeah.
Some places should just be completely left alone, and there are. They've already kind of done that.
Yeah.
And that really protects the genetics of that area. And a lot of people maybe don't know that fish stray. Was it 6%? Stray into nearby waters, which is protects them from natural disasters, in case there's a volcanic eruption or train spills a bunch of chemicals. No, that's a bad case scenario. But anyway, so the salmon, the hatchery salmon thing doesn't directly correlate to wild steelhead necessarily, because steelhead go essentially out in the ocean like it's a big lake. The salmon kind of hover the coastline and head north. The steelhead will literally just wander out there and just start swimming around in circles. I think they've ended up in Japan, Hawaii. They go all over the place. Yeah. So technically they can have a rougher go if the water's warmer off the coast, which they do.
Yeah, other tools that we're developing, you can get this online, or we'll send you a printed booklet, the basics of broodstock, and we think that's a big part of our future. We're trying to accumulate enough accumulate enough funds to do a short 5-6 minute broodstock video, because we want kids, people in schools, people that don't know anything else, they should understand it. So that's coming up.
So one more thing, and this one's really important, is I know on the Clackamas for a while they were doing the brood stock thing, but if they don't have people to be involved with that, then it doesn't happen, right? I mean, you almost need volunteers. You need volunteers to catch the fish and meet the hatchery guy down at the boat launch,
Yeah.
And they let these fish go after they spawn them. They don't die.
Yeah, I was asked about that from a couple of people at the show, and I don't know. I think a guy like anybody that guides regularly on the traps, on the Clackamas will be able to tell you what's going on.
There is a program in the AR.
Are they doing it again?
Okay, good.
Did it stop for
More
a
power
while?
to them.
Okay.
Keep
Well,
doing it.
Good, but it's hard. You have to be there fishing a lot to continue that.
But anybody that's gone over and enjoyed that late season on the Wilson,
the Wilson's
it's pretty
special.
killer.
What a success.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have, without people getting involved in that and making it happen, it wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's fun to be had, but then look at the economics. Look at the money that's spent. I'm working on a piece right now that shows just the cost of going fishing. From equipment to getting ready and gas and the truck and a boat if you do a boat or even bank fishing, and we spend a lot of money, and most of us don't think twice about it because it's what we do.
Oh,
you want to golf? You want to go golf? I'm sorry, any golfers out there, I apologize. But to me, it's to us as an organization, Hatchery Wild is trying to have a voice with the lawmakers that says, okay, we're just not a bunch of selfish people wanting to kill fish. You don't have fun. We're the biggest we are the most effective conservationists. We give more time than the other group. We give more money than you can imagine toward the economy. And why don't you guys notice that? Well, what they'll say is, we got to get rid of this or that, or change this, or mitigate that, or whatever it is. But so we just have to just keep getting loud.
Sure.
And people are doing it, and people are really following up.
And that's a good reason to share this with friends and relatives that don't necessarily fish, or if they live in another part of the country, and you're trying to teach them that hatchery fish are not bad, but we actually do need them. Not everywhere, like we were saying, but in certain situations, and to especially I'm crossing over with salmon again, especially with catching fish to feed humans. Great. Well, hey, thanks for coming in. So don't forget, we've got this is a hoodie right here from Don, and he's got these 3 hats, and we've also got this great sticker here to give away. And I've also got
We got the gunmetal,
the cup.
Yeah.
I've got some sunglasses that are from Nines. These are actually my favorite. They're kind of bright, happy. You put them on and everything's more green. Some sunglasses are just like a tinted shade of gray, which if you're not in the best of mood might make you feel gray as well. I'm also gonna give away a couple cans of this salmon bait. It's by Crustacean Sensation, and I've got 2 spoons from Williams. These are actually made out of they're plated with real gold, real silver, and copper underneath that. Great coho spoons. Probably would definitely like those, or anything. You take that. And then right here for kokanee fishing, this is Al's Goldfish Lure Company. It's essentially got 3 blades on it. You can put a lead ball in front of it, and then your favorite little spinner with some corn or whatever behind there, and just attracts fish. Almost looks like a bunch of little wedding rings, in between with little beads and 3 blades. And it's very effective, and that's all part of this. So comment,
share, like, and then during the next live feed, I'm going to pick the winner for this. So there you go. Hey, thanks for coming on, Don.
Yeah.
It's good seeing you. You know, and I've got to fish a few times now with Don. Same thing. If I don't like somebody, I'm not gonna go fishing with them either. But this is a good guy.
I would really ask all of you guys that are watching this to go to our Facebook page to get an idea of what we're about, more fun, and then go to our website. Just put in Hatchery Wild Coexist. There's lots of good data, research, frequently asked questions. That's the key here, is for everybody to get smarter and then pass this on and make others smarter.
Yeah, you've also got your YouTube page, right? I don't know if you mentioned the YouTube page with
Hatchery Wild
some videos on there. And I think, is there anything else you want to say or mention?
No, be careful the next couple of days. It's going to get slick.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be cold, so it might be time to stay home and go fishing. Oops, I didn't say that. So, hey, thanks for watching. And I'm going to see if this guy back here can just hit end.